Welcome to NinonSpeaks. I'm your host, Ninon de Rosa, and my co-host is AJ Dean. Sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to NinonSpeaks. I'm Ninon, your host, and we have co-host AJ Dean. This is an amazing show. We're giving the opportunity actually for people to be guests on our show around the world. And today we have actually somebody coming in from London. I think this is going to be very exciting. But as you know, I do not introduce our guests. I let AJ do that. So AJ, go ahead and let's see who we got as our guest today.
Hello, Ninon, and thank you so much. We have all things sparkling and entertainment today. I am so excited for your show today. It just keeps getting better and better. We have the wonderful Diane Hinds from the Entertainment Bureau in London, England, and who does amazing public relations and marketing and radio. And we have the incredible award-winning actor, writer, and comedian, John D. Domenico. A warm welcome to both of you. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
What's this chocolate thing? That's a kind of a mid-afternoon. This is encouraging me to have a piece of chocolate. How are you? How's London? Let's go to London first. How's London?
London is grey, gloomy, but it's going to get better.
I know. You know, I live in Vegas, and just announced, I guess a week ago or so, that they're going to be completely open in Vegas June 1st. And this is amazing because, you know, our industry here is the casinos and, you know, tourists. And so everybody's going to be coming to Vegas, especially summertime and everything. So it's awesome.
Absolutely.
How about you, John? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing. Can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Oh, bring it up? Sure. Absolutely. How's that?
Yeah, that's a little better. You look, I love your background. You've got a few awards there, and you've got books.
Yeah, I'll get a couple of
Stuff,
awards.
John.
Here's an interesting award. This is for winning the International Trump Impersonation Contest.
I think that's amazing.
This thing weighs like 2 pounds.
Oh, how amazing. Well, you're in deserve of that, John.
Oh, thank you.
You know why you're in deserve of it? Number one, to take on Trump. That you need several awards for.
Yeah. Well, I started doing him back in 2004, so I was way ahead of everybody else.
Oh, you were way ahead of where everybody.
Yeah, had a very long runway. So when he announced in 2015, everyone just kind of came to me.
You were in the arena of what was his favorite line? You're fired.
You're fired. But I was doing that much longer. You know what I mean? I created that phrase. Believe me, you're fired. You're horrible. You do a terrible job. Terrible. Except me, I do a great job. I do an amazing job.
If I wasn't looking, that's his voice for sure. Isn't that?
I don't miss the voice.
Isn't that Mr. Voice there? Now we're what? 12? Are we 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in London at the moment?
8 o'clock. Yes.
Now, are you actually in London or the outskirts? Where are you?
Well, you worked in Baker Street, if I recall.
I did.
So, so you know where the Edgware Road is?
Absolutely.
So I'm 6 miles. I'm sorry?
Near Madame Tussauds?
Correct. Yes. So as you go north on the Edgware Road for 6 miles, that's where I am.
Well, you're in the upper class area, my dear.
Oh, well, that would be Hampstead. No, we're in its poor cousin.
Oh, God. There's nothing poor about that end of London, believe me. Believe me, it's amazing. I just want to take a moment, Diane, that you sent out a press release on behalf of Ninon, pour moi. And I just want to thank you for the effort and all the work you put into that, and sort of, both being from England, and obviously I'm in Vegas at the moment, but I just want to thank you for doing that and, getting the word out.
It's my pleasure.
It might be nice for people to know in Torquay, where I was growing up, that this woman is sort of still doing something.
Well, especially as your ancestry, you can date it back to the 1600s. You know,
amazing.
Ancestry is big here.
It is big. Well, apparently there was a woman at Loyola Marymount University was very inquisitive about my name, which is Ninon de Vere. De Rosa was my married name. So de Vere was my family name, and de Vere was my father's side. His name was Gerald Alexander de Vere Whiteway Wilkinson. So I grew up with de Vere Whiteway Wilkinson. Quite a mouthful for a young kid.
Well, I have to say you are the third Ninon I've met.
Really? Oh my
That's how unusual the name is, and I've loved it ever since I met my first Ninon, who used to work at the Fairfield Halls in Croydon. It's a great name. Do you know its origin?
Yes, I do. It's actually from Ninon de L'Enclos, and she was a high society woman in Paris, and she was very well known. And I don't know if I'm living up to her name. I hope so. But it's funny you should talk about Fairfield Hall in Croydon. My uncle lived there. So I think it may have been somebody around there when I used to visit my uncle and my aunt and my cousins. And also my auntie Yvonne used to work in Fairfield Hall and always talk about Ninon. So it may be through that. Ask your friend if she knows Yvonne Hicks, if she knew.
Yvonne Hicks. I don't know. She's not there. The Fairfield Hall closed for a period of time.
Yeah.
So I don't think she's still there, and I have lost track.
Lost track. Oh dear. Well, you're not going to lose track of me.
Not at all, I hope.
Not at all. So, John, you have quite a history with you. When did you start sort of impersonating and taking on these challenges? Because to me, it's quite a challenge to sort of try to be like somebody else as that, because you just gave us an example of Trump, and that was pretty true to
Thank you. When I was a kid, I grew up in this town outside of Philadelphia called Ambler, and I grew up in like row homes, which are all over London, but they all had they call them stoops in New York, but the little steps out front. You had 3 or 4 steps, and all my neighbors would sit out. And I was 5. I would just come out and do voices that I'd just seen on Ed Sullivan or Merv Griffin or whoever was on at that time. And I also had a severe speech impediment. So when I did the voices, it eliminated the speech impediment while I was doing that voice. If it was Humphrey Bogart or James Cagney or Ed Sullivan, I would come out and my neighbors would be sitting there and now here on our show, the great Garbaccio brothers, and my neighbors were just amazed by this little 5-6-year-old, very precocious kid who could do these voices, approximate the voice, for a 5-year-old. And they just loved that. It was very encouraging. I got a lot of affirmation out of it. But also my parents did notice, like, when he does the voices, he's fine. And when he doesn't, he sounds like Yosemite Sam or, one of these other characters who can barely speak. Elmer. People told me I spoke like Elmer Fudd because my tongue was too big and all the stuff was too big. And so I would talk like this. So when I went to, when I got in the first grade, they diagnosed me, and then I spent 8 years in speech therapy.
Wow.
2 times a week for 8 years during the school year. But during that time, it really gave me the mechanics of how to do different voices, of throat placement and nasal placement, actual vocal production. One of the speech therapists, pathologists used to go literally hold my face so I would pronounce words properly. But also she talked about the vocal mask and producing sound and where the sound is being produced. Some people are in the throat. If I'm doing someone like Austin Powers, baby, I'm pushing it out. Yeah.
You kind of had private lessons to do what you're doing now.
Right. Yeah. They didn't really know what they were doing, but it really helps me a lot to understand where sound is coming from and how it affects. And certain voices I have to actually push down into my chest so it's more effective. If I'm doing an Aussie accent, those guys are much lower. They all speak from
You have to speak much lower. Yes, you're right. Those British.
Russell Crowe and all those guys. They all speak from here. So I have to get more out of my chest than my throat. So. Yeah, it's manipulating the sound. So that's how I got into it, and I love doing it, and I wanted to do everything as a kid. I wanted to be an actor and an impressionist and make movies. Like the closest person would be someone like Frank Gorshin, who was an impressionist, comedian, actor. He kind of did it all. So, but I was actually following in the footsteps of a totally different person named David Fry, who I had ended up buying his album when I was a kid, and it was Nixon, a 4-Year Fantasy, and he did all these voices on the album, and it had a narrative structure which followed Nixon through the course of a couple of days, and he did all the voices, and any of the voices he couldn't do, he had another guy named Gabe Kaplan, who years later went on to do Welcome Back, Kotter. And it was like, oh, these people are connected. It's, anybody who's been performing for a long time knows a lot of performers, and it's interesting how things start interconnecting after a while, and how performers know each other and writers know each other, and
Yeah, especially with you, because you seem to have got into a place starting very, very young and accidentally being given all the tools to actually do what you wanted to do in the first place, which is acting and doing all that. And you have to learn all this stuff. And this is exactly how you do it. And you did it well. Diane, what do you think? This is really quite amazing, isn't it? How people get into their business and what they want to do for the rest of their lives, which applies to you as well. You're a writer. Now you've written books, I understand.
Well, I did a pocket book a while ago. My background is in public relations, within the entertainment sector. And about 3 years ago, I kind of felt I'd lost my passion. And I thought I needed to do something to distract myself and to get me out and about. So I devised this talk called How to Promote Your Book, aimed at the independent writer. So I thought I needed to have something to promote, in addition to my events that I was organizing. So I did this pocket guide to promoting your book. So that's what I have written. I've written 2 other books that are unpublished, but the pocket book I did, How to Promote Your Book, I self-published. And it was fantastic because I delivered that talk to over 300 libraries in the UK, writers groups in California and Nevada, and I've met so many fascinating people as a result. So even though I felt that I kind of lost my passion for doing the PR, that gave me a new energy to help other people. And as a result of doing it, several people have enjoyed tremendous success as a result of attending my events.
Doesn't that make you feel good when you've actually done something and you've actually helped somebody else, which is your intention of doing, to help somebody else, but you actually get the feedback that has actually happened? I think that has to be the greatest satisfaction in the entire world, regardless of money and cars and houses.
Exactly.
It's
exactly
that you help somebody else overcome, where they, like you, John, you overcame a lot of stuff, and I'm quite sure you were bullied in school. Were you bullied in school?
Yeah, I was bullied.
Well,
I had a speech impediment. I wore glasses from the time I could see. I had one lazy eye, so it floated. I had to wear a patch. So I was like the target of a lot of bullying. And luckily I was funny, so that saved me the really intense beatings.
Yeah, because you were a total catastrophe. I mean, they all picked for this, it was that.
Yeah, and I wasn't athletic, so all the, I was bumping into furniture. So it was good.
You had everything against you, and yet it's funny because everything against you became for you.
Yeah, all those things, all those hurdles you overcome eventually come back around, and it's what drives you and gives you like a clearer vision of what you have to do.
And it certainly does. And AJ, I know you would like to ask Diane a question, because I know you have a couple of questions you'd like to ask her. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Ninon. Diane Hinds is in London, and I wanted to ask Diane Hinds, what's the pulse right now in London, and also to talk about the Entertainment Bureau and what you do and your chocolate radio.
So the pulse in London, I probably am not the right person to gauge that, other than the pubs opened last Monday. So people are now able to go and drink, but it's outside. And I was talking to somebody today who does frequent pubs, and he was saying that, because it's still quite cool at night, there's not that impetus for sitting outside and enjoying a pint. But I'm not particularly fond of pub culture myself. I like going to the cinema or having dinner. rather than sitting there having drinks.
I
It probably makes me sound like a snob, but I'm not. I don't think I am.
Snob.
So, you know, I love people and I love talent. And I love seeing people succeed. So I found many years ago that I quite by chance fell into public relations. So I was able to marry my two passions, which is people and promoting them. You know, I love working in the background. I'm not really somebody to stand out front and do things like that. Like you, Ninon, you're an expert at this. I couldn't do your job.
Couldn't do yours. So you and I are a perfect match. I'll do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love helping people succeed. You know, even now, after doing my job for nearly 30 years, I still get that buzz. I still jump up and down when I've got something for one of my clients. I've not lost that passion.
Me too. I haven't either. It's funny. I still get excited when I'm going to have dinner with someone tonight, and I'm excited to see this girlfriend and go and have dinner. I'm studying. We're not.
Yes.
But I mean, it's exciting. I love it. It's great. Good for you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So with the pandemic, you know, I was in Las Vegas last year. The night I was sitting in, there's that hotel right at the bottom, south part of. Sorry?
Mandalay Bay? That's the
even more south than that one.
Oh, you're talking about the Wynn or the Encore?
Further south.
Oh, the Sahara?
No. Besides the point. Anyway, I was there and I was having a meeting with somebody at about 8 o'clock. And I arrived at the hotel and suddenly the main entrance is closed and I'm thinking, what's going on? So I go in and I find the place. So the place that we were due to meet was closed. So we were sitting in the main area where all the machines are. Yeah. And suddenly I heard this announcement saying the hotel was closing at 10 o'clock that night. And everybody had to vacate the hotel by 12 o'clock the following day. Wow. And I felt I was living in a horror film.
I bet. Wasn't it? That was March the 12th of last year.
Yes. Because well remembered.
Yeah, I had a store because I had a building and I had a phone call saying that they're closing the store in 2 hours. And that was 10 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock, everybody had to be out. And I'm like, so I said, I'll be right down. So obviously, you know, so I know exactly what you're talking about. The strip closed, boom.
The whole strip. And I hadn't at that point driven down the strip as it had closed. But I then had to make emergency plans to return to London because our government advised us to return as UK nationals. So I had to sort that out. And then I thought one of the things I had to do before I flew back was to drive down the strip and just see and feel how it felt. It was sad, really sad. But I'm glad you're bouncing back.
If any time you want footage of that, I have footage of that. I did a whole thing of it and I can send it to you if you would like.
Oh, I would love to see it. That'll be wonderful.
Footage of 2 film, very small pieces of film that shows the whole strip, and it shows where the hotels, the outside of them are all overgrown. It is something you look, or at least you could have kept the garden up. But it's amazing what it looks like when you see the strip before and you see it during. Oh, so I'll send that to you.
It felt like I was in.
Yeah, and the plywood over some of the entrances was very
yeah, I've got that as well, John. I have that as well. I have all this stuff where they've all and lights on, and then I've got also they lit up. This is a great thing they did. They lit up each room and made it into a heart.
Yes.
Each room they put the lights on and made it into this incredible heart, and it was just amazing. But it's a sight that you never thought in a million years you would ever experience or see.
Yeah. It felt like, you know, that film 28 Days.
Yes.
It felt like that.
Yes, that's right. You're right. You're right. Oh my goodness. So you're doing PR. Have you gone back to PR after sort of transferring into the writing and doing a couple of books? And
well, yes, because public relations, I would say, is my main passion. But 30 years ago, I started out in radio and I wanted to work for the BBC in radio and music production, which I did. I achieved that goal. And then kind of life gets in the way. I found my niche as a PR and I absolutely loved it. You know, I've never had a job. You know, that expression, if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's correct.
That's been my career.
That's what we're doing.
And then obviously with the pandemic happening last year, my artists can't perform. So I thought I needed to do something for my own mental well-being.
Yes.
And a dear friend whom I met when I used to work in local radio in 1984, I rang him up by chance because we go out for lunch and every so often. And he said, look, do you fancy doing guest hosting The Quiet Storm on his radio station? So I said, yeah. I thought I haven't done it for 32 years, but yes. And I did it and it was exciting and thrilling. And I thought, I want to do more.
Good.
So I wrote to a number of other internet radio stations. One in America turned me down. And this other station said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And I said, look, I'm still quite new at it. And I had to get some kit because my studio's in my home. We can't go into the offices, the studios. And they've given me carte blanche to do what I want. So I do Monday and Friday, I do, 2 hours of playing classic and contemporary soul music. And I do a feature interview show called The Music My Life. And I interview people like you, and hopefully you'll come on the show to talk about your emotional engagement with music.
Oh, I love music.
Now, what was the first track you heard? What did it mean to you? What was the message you were getting? Who was playing music in your house? If you split up with a boyfriend, what was the music you were listening to at the time and what was going through your mind? So it's quite interesting having those conversations with people about their relationship with music rather than, you did this, you did that. Yeah. And sometimes it's quite emotional. The triggers it has in certain people. There was one lady I interviewed who found God at the age of 7.
Wow.
And was put in a psychiatric hospital aged 13 for 3 years.
Wow.
And she said it's listening to gospel music and her faith in God that got her through. And she broke down into tears, and she let me keep it because, as I said to her, your story will help one person.
That's all you need. Just help that one person. That one person. It's funny you talk about music that you're introduced to at your home. Mine would be Mozart, Brahms, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, Brahms, all this stuff. That's how I was brought up. And every Sunday we would go to a concert. My father would take us one Sunday and my mother would take us the next Sunday. But that's how we sort of, went along life. Getting back to you, John, it's an interesting story on somebody else's life and how they created, which is not the same as how you did yours, but still similar as how we all seem to create our lives. Yes. And all this talent sort of comes out of something. And like you said, Diane, that you never work. Once you find what you like, you never work. But I've never worked, but I've worked all my life. And that sounds the same as you, John, is the situation.
I think performers work every single day of the week, and actors and singers and you're actually looking for work and you're looking for the performance. And someone like me, I write the material and I produce a web series, and you're always it's very stimulating creatively to be doing all of these different things, and you have to do it. No one's going to come to you. You have to make your own opportunities
to make it happen.
Yeah. And it's a 10,000 hour thing with all of this stuff. It's 10,000 hours of doing, rehearsing voices and time on stage and working with other actors and writing. It's just, it's such a, by the time you're good, you're middle-aged. But it's always, but it never stops. It never really stops. And that's one of the things I've learned from even older actors. It's like, unless you're like in that 1 percentile who's asked to be in everything, you're really creating your own work. You're creating your own opportunities. And if you can't do that, this idea of sitting around waiting for someone to call you, especially now with all the social media platforms where you can work in a 15-second format on TikTok or long form on YouTube,
Yes.
but there's so many different places and
There's
so many different
opportunities.
outlets for
So
it. Yeah,
many,
there's so many opportunities.
so many
It's crazy.
opportunities. John, I'm going to ask you, you do Trump. Who else do you do? Who else?
Well, I do a lot of people. I'm doing Regis Philbin when I get off of this phone call. That's why I have my Regis hat right now.
I love it.
I do, I do Austin Powers and
Give
Dr.
Austin
Evil.
Powers.
You want me to do some Austin Powers, baby? Yeah. And I started doing Mike Myers back in 91 and 92 because he was doing Wayne from Wayne's World. He was like,
Yeah.
all right, excellent. Hi, I'm Wayne Campbell from Aurora, Illinois. Swing. So as you know, when he went on to create a lot of different characters, but when Austin Powers came out, I was like, well, I can do Austin Powers because I can do a kind of a mashup of London accents, which he's doing, just kind of a bunch of British accents kind of rolled together. And
can you do a Scottish accent?
What's that?
Scottish. Can you do a Scottish?
I can do Scottish. That's right. Because he does his Scottish too. You know what I mean? He had a whole sketch, and if it's not Scottish, it's crap.
John, do you do the royals? Do you do an upper class? I know you're half Irish and half Italian, so that's in your background. Do you do a upper class royal?
Yeah, well, I was, you and I were talking before when I was, learning comedy and kind of finding it as a kid. We had Monty Python come on. I think it was 69 or 70. I forget the exact year. But all of a sudden, these British men were doing these insanely silly things, and I love, all Americans love the British accent. It just it never gets boring. No, and especially for someone who's doing, like, when they do the women, when they do the fight, the English accent like that, it's really
the cold blimey.
Right? Yeah, it's really, but it's great, and there's so many, it's like thinking America is like three accents, but when you start studying England, and there's so many variations.
Well, Manchester, Leeds.
Manchester's an Essex.
You've got the Welsh, and then you've got Bristol, and you've got Devon, and then you've got London. London has got, all over London.
Right, it's really remarkable.
All these languages. Diane and John, both of you could help each other. One's in America and one's in London.
Absolutely.
You could help each other and see how you can sort of, enhance each other's what you're doing out there, because this is what this whole program is about. And that's why we have two guests, is so that we get you together and you can help each other. We've had a couple of burlesque. We've had a young burlesque and an older burlesque. So the older burlesque is teaching the younger how to keep it out there. So you two could do the same sort of thing.
And I've performed in London. I did 6 appearances on This Morning, and I also, there was another show that I did, I think it's Piers Morgan's show. And I did 2 shows at the Dorchester, and this was in 2016. And then I did some event outside of some country club outside of town. It was
yes, my dear, it would be a country club.
Yeah, it was quite nice. It was really
They're playing
fun group.
golf. They're all on the golf course.
Ladies were quite nice there.
Oh my dear, yes. So back to the royal family. So you do take on the royal family as AJ.
Well, I don't. It's my audience doesn't really know the royals that much. So I'm no pop culture wise who they are, but I wouldn't, other than the queen mum, I really wouldn't know too much,
No. Well, now we have an American involved with the royal family. So you've got them
again causing divorce and mayhem.
I love Harry and Meghan. I have to say, I love Harry and Meghan. Everyone who loves Harry and Meghan, raise your hand.
I think
yes, thank you.
Anybody who walks away from that kind of money, I'm very impressed with that.
I'm going to intervene here a little bit, because I don't think people quite understand what the royal people have to go through. And when you know how their day runs and how they have to attend so many functions and be so correct, and then they can't get out of this box because they're criticized for every single thing they do. And I give Harry an incredible, I don't know how he did it, but that actually happens to be his personality. and he just wants to live the life of a regular person, because the royal family, they don't live actually a regular life. They have a very, very hard on the go life all the time, and they're criticized all the time. Good, bad, right or wrong, right? Is that right, Diane?
Oh, yes, there is a saying that, William is the heir and Harry is the spare, which is awful. Yes, but, if you actually think about it, what kind of a life does he have if he stayed in the firm? I admire him for having the courage to say, I want to make a life on my own. Whether it works or not, I want to go, and I've got to go and explore it. This is me putting words into his mouth. Yes. But you've got to admire somebody who has that courage of conviction. And he's probably made a lot more money now. Well, the couple has probably made a lot more money now than he had whilst he was still part of the firm. He had all the privilege and what have you. But I think he may be happier knowing that he's made it on his own.
I absolutely agree with you.
And may I add something? I do want to say our respects. We're thinking of the Queen at this time. We just want to give a recognition and acknowledgement to Her Majesty, our beloved Queen Elizabeth. And we want to mention her, and she's in our thoughts and prayers at this time.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You need it. And I'm watching the funeral, which I'm sure we all did. And you saw her sitting alone, and you had to think of all those years they were together, and she's sitting there. And as women, especially, what's going through our minds. I went through the same thing. My husband passed away, but we'd only been married 29 years, but still a long time. And when they go, it's like you can't pick up the phone. You can't. Hey, you can't. It's gone. And going through that grief is very hard. So thank you, AJ, for bringing that up. I think that's amazing.
May I also add that, she had to abide by our regulations where COVID is concerned. I lost my father in January, and I was not able to go to the funeral. It's tragic. So many other people in the UK and in the States and around the world have not been able to attend funerals. She was fortunate too, but it was heartening to see her and the family obeying the regulations, because people can twist it to their needs at the time. And there was no sign of that. So I respect her and the family for keeping to that image.
It was hard to do, I would imagine, to stick to that image. On that, John, have you got anything coming up? Are you appearing anywhere? Because now we're getting everything open, and now people are.
I'm doing a show here. Well, I have a show in Florida. I've got two shows at a club in Florida, June 14th and 5th, Flagler Beach, Florida. Okay. I have a show coming up here also in June, a live show with a bunch of other, Ruby Lewis and a bunch of other really great performers here in town. And then I have a network series on Fox, which premieres on April 29th. Called Let's Be Real. And we've done a comedy special back in October, and it was what they call a backdoor pilot. And Fox finally picked it up, and we have a 4-show order. So I was out in LA shooting that. I'm here, and then I go back to LA to shoot some more episodes. And it's actually, since you're all British, it's the closest thing you would equate it to is spitting images. It's all puppets. So I do the voice of Trump as a puppet.
Don't forget, John. Don't forget, John, when you're in Florida, you said you're going to be there June the 14th, right?
Yeah, I think the shows are the 14th and 15th. Oh, pardon me. I leave on the 14th. The shows are the 12th and 13th.
Okay. The reason I was saying that, because my father's birthday was June the 14th.
And that's Trump's birthday.
And Trump's birthday is June the 14th. So you might want to mention a happy birthday to him.
Absolutely.
There you go. Can't forget that little sort of, he would love that. He would.
Yeah, and we'll be in Flagler Beach, and he's a little further down in Florida.
Doesn't matter. He's everywhere.
There was a number, over the years, I've actually done a number of Trump events for Trump's birthday, where I would appear as Trump. And one of those events was at Trump DC, Trump International in Washington DC, and
wow.
It was 900 people, and they hired me to come in as Trump. But since it was his hotel, and he has popped up at these events before, when I came on stage, everyone rushed the stage, and then they realized it was not Trump, it was me. It was very funny.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was like a stampede towards the stage. You know, that's not him. That's not him.
But it's like him.
Yeah. A little shorter. I always hire shorter. I'm only 5'8" and I wear heels when I do Trump, but I hire shorter Secret Service guys to make
the things we do to make to
yeah, and I got to create the illusion if I'm on stage. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Diane, what have you got coming up? You've got your radio shows, right?
Yes, my radio shows. But also one of my clients has got his first gig coming up next month, which is streaming online, which is fantastic. And just hopefully, my daughter is in a play, 2 Victorian farces. So I'm helping her promote that. And I can't wait to see it. That's in July. And it's going to be tremendous fun. So hopefully, very slowly, things are coming back to normal. So hopefully September onwards, things will start to look fantastic.
Yeah, because on NinonSpeaks, and as AJ will say, that we do a lot of promotions. We put us, actually, AJ puts us out there everywhere. We're on TikTok, TikTok. I mean, there's Facebook, there's Twitter.
So many platforms.
There's Twitter. I don't know how she keeps up with it, but I'm browsing through all this stuff, and I come across. Oh, look, there we are. Oh, there we are.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Ninon. We have about a minute left, so we need to wrap it up. Apologize.
Wrap it up. Well, we definitely thank you so much. Well, we're going to wrap it up and say thank you both for coming on, John. Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. Whatever we can do for both of you regarding publicity and whatever we can have. And AJ, thank you for putting all this together. She's amazing, isn't she, guys?
Oh, she's great. It's great.
Yeah, she's absolutely
wonderful. Great meeting you, Miss Hinds.
Yeah,
you, sir.
Virtually.
And but either one of you will be great. AJ, would like to say something? Last words?
Thank you. You've both been so incredible. We want to work with both of you in the future as well. We want to continue our great energy and great efforts. Okay. And I just want to thank you and thank Ninon and everyone out there.
Yeah, we're doing well. Take care, guys. You're wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.
Bye.